Hello everyone, back to the 12th Winter 2018-19 update from GWV.com. So we've done 11 updates so far since the beginning of September. We've only got 13 to do, so this is actually your 12th and penultimate Winter 2018-19 update. Once this one is done, we'll just have one final update to go next week, and then that'll be it. We'll be out of time, we'll be out of updates, and then the following week, on Sunday the 2nd of December, we've got to bring it all together, bring the winter updates together, bring the seasonal models together, put it all together, and we've got to create the winter 2018-19 forecast. So we are very, very close to the end of this season of winter updates now. Can you believe? I hope you found them interesting and informative. I hope you've been enjoying them. But before we get to the end, we've still got this 12th update and the 13th to go. So in a moment, I'll talk you through the latest in terms of the GWV's methodology. We'll be looking at things like ENSO, sea surface temperature anomalies, solar activity, and a bit of a QBO special, quasi-biennial oscillation special, for this 12th update. I'll talk you through that later on in the video. Just to say, it's going to be quite a long video, so you can't watch it all in one go, then don't worry, it will be kept at the website indefinitely. So later on today, or possibly tomorrow, this video will be placed on the winter updates and forecast page. There'll be an extensive written summary that goes with it as well. The reason I say that it might be tomorrow that this gets placed on the winter updates page is that I've got a very busy day ahead of me today. Later on, we're going to be releasing the ECMWF and Meteo France seasonal model update, so that'll be around sort of 2 o'clock this afternoon, something like that. And then also I'm going to try and fit in a 7th Christmas update as well as all of that. I'm going to have a live chat with Quantum between 5 and 7 o'clock. That will be on GWV's. It'll also be on Quantum's YouTube channel. It'll be fully interactive, so I'll be taking questions at GWV's, at Twitter, at Facebook as well. So it will be interactive, and we'll be hopefully taking as many questions as we possibly can between 5 and 7 o'clock this evening. So, really busy day, and because of that, I may not be able to get Winter Update onto Winter Updates page until tomorrow morning, but I will attempt to do it tonight. I will hopefully try and get that on the Winter Updates page for you later on today. But just say a big thank you as well to our good friend James Ackrill for getting all of the analogs and the solar tracker together. So once again, I couldn't do winter updates without James's input. So as always, a big thank you to our analogs guru James Ackrill. Also got a little bit of outside the box sort of thinking from our good friend Richard Trott for this update. So again, that's associated with the QBO stuff. I'll talk you through that. We'll discuss that later on in the video. So I think that's pretty much all I've got to tell you, just to say that enjoy the video, hope you find it interesting and informative. Get yourself a cup of tea and some biscuits. We'll be here a little while in a comfy chair. And I think better get on with it. So we're going to begin this 12th Winter 2018-19 update with the stratosphere. So this is the latest in terms of the stratospheric temperatures at 30 HPA over the North Pole. The grey line here is the trend for this time of the year. So we are in a cooling time of year, of course, from September, where we start off over there, to the middle of winter, where stratospheric temperatures are usually at their coldest, to up here back in the summer, or when we get to the summer, when those temperatures are lifting back up again. So we're in the cooling time of the year in terms of those stratospheric temperatures at 30 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole. The black line shows where we've been through this season. So we start off very, very close to that grey line. We did, as we went into the start of November, see quite a drop in the temperature at 30 HPA. Quite a cooling occurred. Then it ticked up towards average, and then it cooled down again, although that cool down is actually levelling off a little bit. I hope you can see that with that little black uptick just there, showing that the cool down that has been occurring over the past week has levelled off. Nevertheless, we are still slightly below the grey line. We're slightly cooler than average at 30 HPA at the moment. If we go a little bit higher up to 10 HPA, so this is kind of like right at the very, very top of the stratosphere, very top of the atmosphere in the stratosphere, over the North Pole at 10 HPA. You can see that there we're still dropping the temperature actually. So we get this first drop in the temperature at 10 HPA occurring through the second half of October and into the start of November. Then it ticks up a little bit, but it has been dropping, and it looks like it's still dropping even now. Dates on the bottom of the chart, of course. When we get into winter, what we're going to be looking for is a stratospheric warming, and that will take the black line up to here very quickly. So when that happens, we are having a stratospheric warming, but you can also get a sudden stratospheric warming. When that happens, when you get an SSW, you will take the black line up to there somewhere very quickly. They look really, really dramatic, but when they occur, they can be a real game changer for the winter, because a few weeks down the road they can actually produce very extensive blocking. And before the beast from the east, a cold spell that we had at the end of last winter, we closed out last winter with very cold weather. A couple of weeks before that happened, we actually had a sudden stratospheric warming through the early to middle part of February 2018. And that eventually, of course, led us on to the beast from the east. And to be honest, the charts and the weather patterns have been very unusual ever since that sudden stratospheric warming. Now, this is a feature I've been including in the videos through this season of updates. I hope you've been enjoying these. So what this is depicting is the strength of the zonal winds at 10 HPA. So it tells us where we've been with the strength of the zonal winds, and we also get a forecast for where the zonal winds are likely to go in the next 2 weeks based on the GFS ensembles, but also where the zonal winds are being forecast to go through the winter based on the long-range CFS model. So let's deal with the blue line first of all, because that is this year, that's 2018. You see that the zonal winds did become really quite strong there through sort of the end of October and into the beginning of November. We had strong zonal winds indeed. Then they dipped just very briefly down to there, but they re-strengthened again to go up to that sort of level. So the black line is kind of like the average strength of the zonal winds at this time. Obviously, you expect strong zonal winds because we're going into the winter, but stratosphere 10 HPA is at its coldest at this point of the year. It will be in around a month. And so that cold stratosphere is associated with a strengthening of the zonal winds. So you expect this to be the strongest period of the year in terms of the strength of the zonal winds through the middle part of the winter anyway. We've been stronger than average generally over the past month or so. We're still stronger than average with those zonal winds. But the green lines here, they are the GFS ensembles, and you can see it only takes us 2 weeks out, but you see the GFS ensembles are forecasting quite a dramatic weakening of the zonal winds in the next couple of weeks. So it does look as though the zonal winds are going to be dipping down quite a bit from where they are now in the next 2 weeks, much weaker zonal winds, and that could well be associated with an increased risk of northern blocking, some high pressure getting going in the northern latitudes that might take us into something quite substantially colder. Now the next couple of weeks, the other coloured lines are from the CFS V2. CFS is run 4 times a day, midnight, 6 o'clock in the morning, midday, and 6 o'clock in the evening. We've got 4 coloured lines here, 3 pink and 1 blue. Look what they're doing. The dates are along the bottom of the chart. So we've got, this is November just here. This is the current month of November. We've got December just here. We've got January just there, and then February, as far as we go, is just there. As far as we go is to the end of February. So look what's happening through December. So we have 1, 2, 3 of the CFS ensemble members through the middle part of December absolutely crashing, really crashing the zonal winds. In fact, it looks like we're almost going into a reversal, these zonal winds, as we go through the middle part of December. This is implying that in December we are probably going to get a sudden stratospheric warming, which is unusual. They normally occur later on in January and February, but it looks as though early to mid-December, something very dramatic is being forecast to take place there by 3 of the 4 CFS members, 3 of the 4 CFS ensemble members are forecast something very dramatic to happen with the zonal winds, probably via a sudden stratospheric warming through the middle of December. We do have 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4, I should say, that's actually keeping the zonal winds not particularly strong. Even this one is weaker than average at this level. It's underneath this black line. But 1 of the 4 CFS members actually keeping the zonal winds at a relatively modest sort of strength before it drops it out in January, which is more typical. That's more like what you'd expect to happen in a normal winter, that the zonal winds will weaken through the course of January and also into February. But what we see there is something very, very unusual happening in December with these 3 CFS runs forecasting that collapse of the zonal winds through the course of December. So that's happening in around a month's time, if they're right. In around the middle of December, we see something very dramatic happening in the stratosphere at 10 HPA that absolutely collapses the zonal winds. And, well, going to be interesting times if that was to come up, because if we did get a dramatic warming of the stratosphere that early in the winter, it could mean that for January, possibly to February, we might be in line for some very significant blocking as well. That's the kind of thing you're looking for if you want to be thinking about a colder than average winter. You want to get the zonal winds knocked out, weakened dramatically early on, and then it means that as you get towards the coldest part of the winter, which is actually normally January, you're in with a good chance of getting some significant blocking going. That's from weatheriscool.com. Do let me know if you've enjoyed seeing that in these winter updates this year. It's a new feature that I've added in this year. Let me know what you think. Right, solar activity is next. So this is how the solar disk on our solar disk is looking today from solarham.net. We have got 1 small sunspot region just there. Otherwise, there's not much happening on the solar disk. Solar activity is officially at very low levels and is forecast to remain at very low levels for the next 3 days at least. This is the GWV's 12th Winter Update Solar Activity Tracker, updated to the 17th of November, when I'm recording the video today, updated and sent through to us by a good friend, James Acrill. So again, the orange line here is depicting each individual day's sunspot numbers. So we go right way back to the end of last year with this, into December 2017. You can see that at that point we was getting regular days still with low levels of sunspots. Things changed through the summer when we went to this very, very low level of sunspots. Indeed, it lasted a long time, about a month, maybe more than a month, with barely any sunspots whatsoever from there to there, from kind of like late June into the early part of August, except for that 1 sunspot just there, 1 day of sunspots just there. Basically, it was spotless for all that time. The sunspots have come back a little bit as we've gone through this autumn, but generally we're talking about very low numbers of sunspots, and we are still getting prolonged runs, actually, where there are no sunspots at all on the solar disk. So, for example, we have quite a long one, just had quite a long one through the course of October into the start of November. Where we are right now is just here. So, yes, we are getting sunspots on some days, very low numbers of them, but they are still occurring. Actually, the sunspot we had last week, I believe, was a sunspot associated with solar cycle number 25. That doesn't mean that we have moved into solar cycle number 25 yet. There is an overlap between the 2 solar cycles, but we are getting occasionally now a few sunspots that will be marked down as sunspots from solar cycle number 25. But we are still in, don't get me wrong, we are still in solar cycle number 24, and we will remain in solar cycle number 24, I would think, for at least another 6 to 9 months, maybe even more than that. This is true solar minimum sort of stuff that we're in now. The trend lines are the thick green and the thick red lines. They're right on the bottom right on the floor of the chart, and so that is just genuine sort of solar minimum type conditions. This is going to be, if it's not the solar minimum winter, it will certainly be a winter that is very closely associated to the solar minimum solar cycle number 24. We can expect weak solar activity to continue right throughout the course of this winter, of course. We know from earlier analogues that we had in the winter updates that it increases the chance of a cold winter being this close to solar minimum, but it doesn't guarantee it. We'll look at the solar activity tracker again next week. Right, this is how the oceans were looking across the world when we did last week's 11th Winter 2018-19 update. We've got the three areas of interest in particular. We've got the ENSO region just there. We've got the Northern Pacific Ocean just here. And then we've got the Atlantic Ocean, which is over there. So that's how the sea surface temperature anomalies were looking when we did last week's 11th update. Let's take you through to the very latest, and this is it. So again, very little change in the situation in the oceans. Let's deal with the Equatorial Pacific, the ENSO region, first of all. So that was a situation in the ENSO region last week when we did the 11th Winter 2018-19 update. This is the very latest. Overall, perhaps a slight reduction has taken place in the sea surface temperature anomalies through the ENSO region, I think. Still in sort of weak El Nino territory, but I don't think those temperature anomalies have increased any more over the past week. If anything, they might have just edged back a little bit just over the past week. There's not much in it. We're in a weak El Nino type condition there. And I think this is probably going to be a weak El Nino winter, probably a weak Modoki El Nino winter, which is a central-based El Nino. We looked in earlier analogues, with the earlier analogues in the winter updates that we did a little while ago. We know from those updates that Modoki, a central-based El Nino, very much increases the chance of a colder winter. Up in the Northern Pacific, again, very little change, everything looking very stable. We still have, situation last week, this is the latest, we still have that warm area, warm and average area sea surface temperature anomalies up here in the Northern Pacific, particularly over towards the northeastern part of the Pacific. That's going to be there for the winter, I think. And then over in the North Atlantic, again, that situation last week, this is how things are looking now. Very little change overall. We've still got these cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of Greenland. Still looks relatively warm up in the Norwegian Sea, but tropical Atlantic is close to average. I mean, it looks like it's a little bit cooler in between. So all looking very stable in terms of what the oceans are doing. Now, this is from tropicaltidbits.com. This is showing how the these sea surface temperature anomalies have changed on a day-by-day basis over the past few weeks. We can actually go back into the summer with this, so we can go back to August just here. But this is where we are right now, up to the 17th of November. So to be in an El Nino, you have to be around 1.5 degrees or more above average, going that way, of course. In a cold event, in a La Nina, you have to be around half a degree or more below average. Where we was through August into September is that we was very much around ENSO neutral. We lifted the temperature up in terms of the central part of the Equatorial Pacific in the latter part of September and through to October. We went above El Nino threshold, that crucial half a degree above average. Interestingly, as we got towards the sort of early part of November, this is the beginning of November just here, as we got to that point, we did all of a sudden see the sea surface temperature anomalies really shooting up there, going up to around 1.5 degrees above average at the peak at the beginning of November. So that was proper sort of moderate El Nino type threshold. But you'll see that day by day, that has been dropping back. It's dropped back quite a bit, and so now we are back down to there, just half a degree above average. Let's get rid of all that. So where we are right now is around half a degree above average, quite a bit lower than where we was with the sea surface temperature anomalies in the central part region 3.4, central part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean at the beginning of November. So quite a dramatic lift up and then quite a dramatic drop down actually through the course of November. And at this point we are just on the sort of periphery, just on the edges of an El Nino event at around 0.5 degree above average. This is how things are looking at depth in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. So we continue to have very much warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies at depth. This is from the CPC, NCEP, NOAA PDF. They update this every week. It's always a terrific read. You can find a link to this on the links page at GWV. So it's always a really good read, this. And they update it every week. Again, if you think that this is kind of like the surface of the equatorial Pacific Ocean just here, so we would have Peru just there, and then we'd have Indonesia over here, so that's like the surface going along there, and then on the side we've got the depths going from like 50 meters down to 300 meters. Very, very deep ocean, of course, the Pacific Ocean. So kind of like between, let's say it's between around 50 to 150 meters. That's where the warmest of the subsurface temperature anomalies are, and they really are very substantially warmer than average now. It's around 4, maybe up to 6 degrees, between 4 and 6 degrees above average there through that subsurface part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. So quite a substantial mass of warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies is at depth underneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, and that's all waiting to rise up to the surface. It hasn't been able to rise up particularly well to the surface because of what's been going on with the Southern Oscillation Index, the SOI. So we've been seeing the Southern Oscillation Index is like an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere in the Southern Ocean, looking at the air pressures between Darwin and Tahiti. And so when the SOI is in its negative phase, the atmosphere will be reflective of an El Nino. When the SOI is in its positive phase, the atmosphere will be reflective of a La Nina, be reflective of a cold event. And what we've been seeing through the past couple of months is sort of trading SOI numbers, trading positivity of the SOI, which of course is La Nina type condition in the atmosphere, with negativity of the SOI, which is El Nino type condition. So if I scroll you down to the numbers, for example, we see here on the 3rd of November, we go down to minus 9.17. That's the atmosphere in the Southern Pacific Ocean being quite reflective of an El Nino event. But on the 11th of November, we find the SOI coming out at 11.20. And that's the atmosphere being reflective in the Southern Ocean of a La Nina, of a cold event type setup. Again, measuring the air pressures between Darwin and Tahiti. Now, what's happened over the past few days is that so we have the 11th coming out at plus 11. We have the 12th of November coming out at minus 1.51. That's about neutral. 13th comes out at plus 2. That's near neutral as well. 14th comes out at minus 1. So again, near neutral, neither in El Nino or La Nina particularly. 15th comes out at minus 1.72, again very much neutral. But look what happens with the last two numbers, the 16th and the 17th of November, coming out at minus 4.06 and minus 25.26. Now, if we'd had those kinds of numbers over the past couple of months on a regular basis, if we've been seeing day after day after day of those very negative numbers, then we would be in, I think we'd be in quite a strong El Nino, because this is actually a really warm subsurface temperature anomaly that we have at depth here, between kind of like sort of 50 to 150 meters. We have a mass of warm subsurface temperature anomalies there. That would have come to the surface, I think, if we'd have had the atmosphere hooking up with the ocean over a sustained period, and we'd have known that that was happening by regular, very negative numbers, such as we do have there for the 16th and the 17th of November. That would allow the atmosphere in the ocean to connect with one another, to couple up with one another, and that would have produced a really significant El Nino event, I think. But as it is, we're very late in the season now. There is enough subsurface temperature warm temperature anomalies, though, to produce an El Nino. So if this is the start of a drop, of the collapse of the SOI, then because of that warm water that is at depth in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, we could well find ourselves going into a genuine El Nino event over the next month or two. So there is still questions about what's happening here. I think we're going to have a weak El Nino. It may never get completely designated, fully designated by NOAA, but I think this will be a weak Modoki El Nino winter. If the SOI goes very negative, so if the atmosphere gets itself into a proper El Nino type setup, then we might see something a little bit stronger happening with El Nino. But it's too late in the year now to get a strong El Nino event, or it's certainly too late to get a Super Nino. So it's either going to be like a weak El Nino, or at the most it will be a moderate El Nino event that we have this year. This is how the 2018 Atlantic hurricane season is looking, winding down now. This is the 2018 hurricane season page from Wikipedia. So our numbers are coming out like this. For total depressions, we stand at 16. For total tropical storms, we stand at 15. For total hurricanes, we stand at 8. And then for major category 3 or above hurricanes, we're standing at 2. So no change on last week's numbers. We haven't seen any change there from last week. Again, it's been a rather strange season. We have had a lot of depressions and storms. For hurricanes and major hurricanes, probably not too far from average. And as I say, the hurricane season is rapidly drawing to a close and winding down now. Next thing we want to look at is Siberian, Scandinavian and Russian snow cover. So this is how things were looking across Russia, Scandinavia and Siberia when we did last week's 11th Winter 2018-19 update. This is from Friday, the 9th of November. I'll show you the latest as we move over to the 16th of November. You'll see that we are still quite low for snow cover across Scandinavia at the moment. We're pretty low across Scandinavia with that snow cover. There it is. But we have pushed the snow cover back into the northwest of Russia, just here. So we've increased snow cover there. We've even moved a little bit of that snow cover down into the east of Europe as well. Obviously, over the week, there has been a big increase in snow cover across Russia, northwestern Russia, compared to what we saw last week. But not much of an increase, mate. In fact, we might have lost a little bit of snow across Scandinavia compared to what we saw last week. So fairly low now, I would have thought, compared to average Scandinavia, but not doing too badly at all for Western Russia. This is how things looked at this point last year, from Thursday, 16th of November 2017. You'll notice much more snow this time last year across Scandinavia. A lot more snow up there, with a snow line into the west of Russia, but not as far west as it is this year in the northwest of Russia, interestingly. Right, let's run you through the years then. So we're below... for Scandinavian snow cover, we are below this point last year. For Russian snow cover, we're probably a little bit ahead, or maybe on a par with it, but I think probably a little bit ahead this year. This is going to be 2016, and we are well behind 2016 now. Look at that. This point in 2016, all of Scandinavia was covered with snow. The snow was into the east of Europe as well. The whole of Russia was covered, so obviously we are quite a lot behind 2016 for this year at this point. That's 2015, and probably on a par for Scandinavia with 2015, but we're behind for Russia. And then that's 2014, so I think we're ahead of 2014 now, actually. So again, that's the situation now. This is situation 20. Let's get, so this is related just here. Let's get rid, because it's a bit complicated, let's get rid of that one. So this is where we are right now, and that's 2014. So what do we think to that? I think we're probably ahead of 2014 this year for Russian snow cover, probably quite closely matched for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2013, and again, this situation now, this situation in 2013. And once again, I think we can say that we're probably a little bit behind 2013 for Scandinavian snow cover, but probably a bit ahead for Russian snow cover. That's 2012, so I think we're quite close for Scandinavian snow cover, 2012, maybe a little bit behind. For Russian snow cover, probably closely matched, but at this point we haven't got the snow cover into the east of Europe, such as we have now. That's 2011, so I think we're quite close to Scandinavian snow cover in 2011 this year. We're behind, though, for Russian snow cover at this point in 2011. That's 2010. Interesting, isn't it? So we see that we are well behind for Scandinavian snow cover this year compared to 2010. But for Russian snow cover, we're actually quite well ahead. I think we've got more, quite a bit more snow cover this year compared to this point in 2010 across Russia. That's 2009. We are behind 2009 for both Scandinavian and for Russian snow cover. That's 2008. That's quite an interesting one because we are ahead of 2008 for Russian snow cover. And we're probably quite close to 2008 for Scandinavian snow cover as well. So that's before a cold winter as well, remember. 08-09 was our first cold winter of the cluster that occurred between 08-09 and 2012-13. That's 2007, so this is 16th of November 2007. Look how much further east the snow cover was at this point in 2007, actually into central parts of Europe. All of Russia covered, most of Scandinavia covered as well. That was before a mild winter, of course, of 07-08. This is 2006, so for Scandinavian snow cover, we are behind 2006 this year. For Russian snow cover, I think we are behind as well, 2006. That's 2005. We are ahead of 2005 for both Scandinavian snow cover and for Russian snow cover as well. That was such a slow year to get going for snow cover. Look how far east the snow is generally in the middle of November 2005 and how much of Scandinavia was yet to be covered with snow. So we're ahead of both Russia and Scandinavia this year compared to 2005. That's 2004, so what do you think about that one? I think overall we're probably a bit ahead for Russian snow cover this year and possibly even a little bit ahead for Scandinavian snow cover as well to 2004. 2003 looks very close to this year actually, certainly for Russian snow cover, maybe a little bit ahead of it. For Scandinavian snow cover, probably quite equally matched. Bear in mind, this is just my interpretation of this, so if you disagree, do let me know through the comments which year you think is closest to 2018. That's 2002. We are behind 2002 quite clearly for both Scandinavian and for Russian snow cover as well. That's 2001. We're behind, or probably quite closely matched to 2001 for Russian snow cover, and a little bit behind for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2000. What do we think to that one? So I think we're ahead of 2000 for Russian snow cover and probably a little bit behind though for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 1999 where we got the snow across the whole of Russia and into the east of Europe at this point. So obviously well behind 2000 and 1999 I should say. We are well behind 1999 this year for Russian snow cover. For Scandinavian snow cover probably quite closely matched. And then that's 1998. Again, we pushed for snow into the east of Europe at this point in November 1998. So I think we're behind 1998 really for both Russian and for Scandinavian snow cover as well. So I just want to show you this as well. We're going further back with snow cover. This is from the Rutgers edu website. You can find a link to this on the links page at GWV. This is going to take us back even further. I'll whiz through these very quickly. So where we've got this orange area, but you've got to turn your head around a little bit to see these. So the British Isles is just there, Scandinavia is just there, kind of like Western Central Europe is just there, and then all of this is Russia. Of course, we've got America and Canada over here. Where we've got the orange colours, that is where we have snow cover, and you see that at this point in 1997, that snow cover was just like into the west of Russia. It was covering much of Scandinavia, but it hadn't really got into Europe. Let's run you through these very quickly. So that's 1996, where we see most of Scandinavia is covered with snow, most of Russia is covered with snow as well for this week, week 46 in 1996. That's 1995, week 46 in 1995, shows snow across the whole of Russia, all of Scandinavia covered with snow at this point, and many parts of Central Eastern Europe also covered with snow. That's before the cold winter of 95-96, of course. That's 1994, all of Russia, most of Scandinavia covered with snow, not that much of Europe. That's 1993, not all that much snow in Scandinavia actually at this point in 1993, but all of Russia was covered. That's 1992, most of Scandinavia covered with snow, all of Russia covered with snow, and some of that was even getting into Europe as well at this point in 1992. 1991 shows all of Russia covered with snow, most of Scandinavia covered with snow, and snow into Eastern Europe as well. That's 1990, a little bit shorter with the snow cover there across the west of Russia at this point in 1990. Quite a bit of Scandinavia not covered with snow either. That's before the cold winter of 1990-1991. That's 1989, so let's whiz through these even quicker. That's 1988. So again, you'll see that most of Russia covered with snow at this point in 1998, before the mild winter of 1988-1989. That's 1987. Again, most of Russia is covered with snow, very little though across Scandinavia. That's 1986. Snow line a bit short of the west of Russia for this week in 1986, but we do see Scandinavia also a little bit down on snow cover too. That's 1985. Most of Russia is covered with snow. Quite a bit of Scandinavia is as well. 1984 shows all of Russia covered with snow. Most of Scandinavia is covered with snow, and that snow is getting into the east of Europe at this point in 1984. 1983 looks like that. All of Russia covered. But a lot of Scandinavia is not covered with snow. 1982, looking like that. Most of Russia is covered with snow, but again, quite a bit lower across Scandinavia. 1981, before that severe December, shows that all of Scandinavia and Russia, Western Russia, was covered with snow at this point. We hadn't got some of that snow into the east of Europe as well. 1980, looking like that. Most of Russia and Scandinavia covered with snow. 1979, much further back with the snow line at this point in 1979 across Western Russia, and also snow just restricted to northern Scandinavia. That's 1978, before that severe winter of 78-79. You see again, the snow line is a little bit short of the west of Russia at this point in 1978, but most of Scandinavia is covered with snow. That's 1977, where we see more snow across Scandinavia and into the west of Russia as well. 1976 is looking like that. Most of Russia, most of Scandinavia covered with snow. 1975, though, before the mild winter of 75-76, has the snow line short of the west of Russia at this point. 1974, all of Scandinavia is covered with snow at this point in 1974, but the snow line is short of the west of Russia. 1973 has all of Russia covered with snow, and most of Scandinavia is as well. 1972, all of Scandinavia covered with snow, all of Russia covered with snow, and that snow is into the east and northeastern part of Europe as well. 1971, all of Russia covered with snow, the snow into the east of Europe, and most of Scandinavia covered too. 1970, again, Russia and Scandinavia completely covered with snow at this point. 1969, all of Russia and Scandinavia covered. 1968, showing again all of Russia and most of Scandinavia covered with snow. 1967 though shows the snow line just a little bit short of the west of Russia. That's probably similar to how it is now. And also we see much of Scandinavia covered with snow. And the last year is 1966, which shows that the west of Russia, sorry, it's just a little bit short of west of Russia, but most of Scandinavia is covered with snow. So what we take from that is that many of those years are differing. I have to say many of those years are differing with one another. And some of the years that are quite a bit lower for snow cover are not necessarily mild winters, but again, some of the years that have really good snow cover there are not necessarily cold winters. So it just backs up what I was saying, really, that October is the main month for this theory that a rapid advance of snow cover in October is a critical factor for strengthening the Siberian high. But for November, the feedback seemed to be much more patchier. Right, so we talked for 40 minutes. I'm going to pause the video there, and then when we come back, we're going to do our QBO special. So I'm going to talk you through the QBO, the quasi-Siberian oscillation, and then we will have some analogues, some relevant analogues for the situation in terms of the QBO for this year, for 2018. So go and get yourself a cup of tea, and we'll see you back here in around 2 minutes' time when we'll do the QBO section of the 12th Winter 2018-19 update. Okay, we're back and we're ready to resume our 12th Winter 2018-19 update. You can check to make sure we're recording okay. Yes, we are. So we're going to have a look now at the QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation, as we come to an end of these winter updates. Just one more winter update to do next week, and then we will be into the winter forecast. So we're going to look at the QBO now as we draw to a close with the 11th Winter 2018-19 update. So the QBO is an index that's reflecting the strength of the zonal westerlies across the northern hemisphere. So when you are in a westerly phase of the QBO, you will typically be finding that the zonal westerlies are strengthened. When you are in an easterly phase of the QBO, you will typically find that the zonal westerlies are weakened. So at its most basic, an easterly QBO goes along with an increased chance of a colder winter, because the zonal westerlies should be weakened. You should have a greater chance of getting northern blocking, and northern blocking is the route to getting colder winters. Kind of like taking us back to what I was just talking about at the very beginning of this update, really, with the zonal winds. When you are in a westerly QBO, that should be greatly associated with an increased chance of a milder wind, because the zonal westerlies are strengthened. The point is about this, though, is that you'll get many years that deviate from that. So it isn't quite that straightforward. You can't use a QBO on its own as a particular sort of driver. You have to combine it with other factors. It is an important factor for winter weather forecasting, but you couldn't sort of use it on its own. So what you're seeing here is a chart that's been created by our good friend James Ackroyd that is depicting all of the QBOs that have come and gone over the past years back to the 1950s. So we see every month's QBO going back into the 1950s. Easterly QBOs are depicted by blue numbers, and the deeper the blue boxes, I should say, the deeper the blue that you see here, the stronger the easterly QBO is. And the same is true for westerly QBOs, only they're red boxes. So the deeper the red, the stronger the westerly QBO is. And of course, the bigger the number is, the stronger the east or west QBO is as well. So for example, that's a very weak westerly QBO month that we have just there, just plus 3.21 and a very light red colour. But this one is much stronger, plus 10.46 with a deep red colour. So let's go down to this year, to 2018. Obviously, we know we've been in this easterly QBO. It started in 2017, just there. We saw a rapid descent into the easterly QBO through the middle of 2017, gathering pace through 2018 as well, reaching its peak in the summer of 2018. June coming out at minus 28.45, and July coming out at minus 2.91. That was the peak of this ECQBO, since when we have been weakening the ECQBO. So every month since July has shown a weakening of the QBO. Last month, October, just hanging on to the easterly QBO at minus 2.71. I think that will be the last month for this easterly QBO. And then as we get to November, that will be the first month of the westerly QBO, and December should be westerly QBO as well. There's a time lag between changing from the east to the west QBO though, so just because the westerly QBO will start, the first numbers will appear in November and December, doesn't necessarily mean have much impact on the atmosphere. That might happen a little bit later on. So there's always a bit of a time lag from changing one QBO state to another and it actually starting to impact the atmosphere. Now, our good friend Richard Trott has been thinking a little bit outside the box with the QBO. So I'm just going to talk you through Richard's methodology here. So Richard has been looking at 15 months with easterly QBOs, 15 or more easterly QBO months, if you like. So he's gone back into the 1950s to come up with the years that have 15 or more months with easterly QBOs. And there's quite a lot of them, actually. The easterly QBO is generally longer than the westerly QBO. I think on average, the easterly QBO runs for around 15 or 16 months, whereas the westerly QBO runs for around 11 or 12 months on average. And that means, by the way, that next winter, 2019-20, we should be going into an easterly QBO around this point of 2019. So next winter, 1920, is likely to be an easterly QBO winter, unless something unusual happens. But anyway, back to Richard's outside-the-box thinking. So we've got 1956 here, when the easterly QBO started, and it had more. It had 15 months of that easterly QBO or more. We've also got 1962. We've got 1965. We've got 1967, that one starting just there, of course, that ECQBO starting just there. And then going further down the list, we've also got 1974, just here. We've got 1976. Remember, all of these easterly QBOs starting in these years run for 15 or more years. So 1976, and then we've got 1981 down there. Let's go further down, and we can see we've also got 1983. We've got 1986, we've got 1988 just there, we've got 1991, we've got 1993, we've got 1995, and then carrying on down, here we go, we're going to go down to 2000, just there. And then we're going to go down to 2005, we're going to go down even further to 2011. That's the last time we had an ECQBO that ran on for 15 or more months. It started just there in 2011, and can you believe it carried on throughout the whole of 2012 and even into the beginning of 2013. That's a very, very long ECQBO indeed. And then, of course, the last time we've done it, aside from that, is 2017, 2018. We are currently at 17 months for this easterly QBO. I think that will be the final month, be the 17th and the final month. So a lot of years there actually that have had the ECQBO run on for 15 or more months. So we're going to narrow that down a little bit more. So then we look at, out of those years, how many of them have the ECQBO starting in the summer. So out of those years, we will come out with 1962, that's an easterly QBO starting in the summer. We would come out with 1967, that's an easterly QBO starting in the summer. We had 1970, easterly QBO that started in the summer of 1970. We would have 1981, easterly QBO starting in the summer. 1983, we would have 1986 and 1988, all easterly QBOs that begin during the summer months. We would also have 1991, we would have 1993, we would have 2000, and we would have as well 2011, and of course we would also have 2017 as that began in the summer of 2017. So still quite a few of these easterly QBO years running on for 15 or more months that begin in the summer. So we have to narrow it down even further than that to be relevant to this particular easterly QBO. And to do that, we look at the years that start that easterly QBO, not just in the summer, but the years that started in the Junes of those years, because this easterly QBO began in June 2017. And so there's only 4 of those easterly QBOs that started in the June. There is 1967, that began in June of 1967. There is also 1981, so that began in the June of 1981. There is 1986, that began in the June of 1986, and then the last year is 1991, beginning in the June of 1991. Just there. So the relevant reanalysis that we have to look at for these years is these winters. So these are all the easterly QBOs, the end of the easterly QBOs. These are all the winters, the 4 winters where the easterly QBO started. Let's just change that over. Started in the June. So we've got our first winter is 1968-1969 with a big area of above average heights around Greenland. And we have the below average heights underneath it down here, and we pull the wind in from the east or northeast. That's a cold winter for this particular package of analogues with these easterly QBOs that run for 15 or more months and start in the month of June. So we have 68, 69. We also have 82, 83, which is the relevant winter for where we are right now with these easterly QBO analogues. So this one is an unsettled winter. 82, 83 has below average heights up to the north, above average heights down to the southwest. We bring the wind in from the west. It does turn quite cold at the end of the winter and is a very cold spring. We have 87, 88. This is a very mild winter with below average heights to the west of the country and bringing up that southwesterly wind. It does have a bit of a blocking signal, interestingly, but it's nowhere near strong enough to do anything particularly cold for us. And then we have 92, 93, which has this big area of above average heights over into central parts of Europe. Below average heights are up to the north, sending the jet stream through rather like that. That's a mild winter, 82, 92, 93. Bringing those together, this is how the Decembers look. So they're unsettled. We have below average heights out to our west. We have above average heights to our east and to the north as well. Very unsettled. Relatively mild signals for the Decembers. For the January, very mild signal. Below average heights up to the north, above average heights to the southwest. And we bring in those very mild southwesterly winds. So quite a mild signal for the Januaries. A little bit different for the Februaries, though. This could be primarily down to February 1969, though, I have to say, which was a very cold month. That might be skewering this a little bit. But also February 1983 had its moments. So overall, over the 4 winters overall, we have above average heights out to the northwest and below average heights down to our south. A rather colder signal in the Februaries. The Marches are similar with above average heights out to the northwest and then below average heights down to the southern part of the country. But the winters overall, so it looks like this, and really a winter 2 halves means that the overall anomaly for the winter places below average heights through the country rather like that. But remember, we do signal that December and January are relatively mild months, and February is the one that could be quite a bit colder. So that's starting us off with our analogues, and a big thank you to Richard for doing that. The next thing we've got to look at, though, with the QBO is those winters that are transitioning from easterly to westerly QBO. So again, we know that this winter is going to be a transitional winter from the easterly QBO that we've been in since June 2017. We will transition from that into a westerly QBO winter. So, for example, let's try and find a year when we do this east to west transition that we're going to be seeing this year. So I'm just scrolling through the years right now to see if I can find a year that is doing this, and it's proving a little bit difficult. Actually, so let's just have a look at our first year. We've got 1977 there, so let's go back to the list and look at 1977. There it is. The year of 1977 has that easterly QBO through the first half of the year, becoming stronger into the summer, then gradually weakening as we go into the autumn, slowly weakening. And the first month of the westerly QBO of 77 to 78 was in December 1977, that month just there. I mean, you see, through 1978, we gradually increase that westerly QBO, reaching its peak through the summer of 1978 before easing away into the final months of 1978. So our first year, that is an east to west transitional QBO winter, is going to be this year of 1977-1978. This is a cold winter with below average heights to our south, blocking up to the north, the jet stream down there. That's a relevant winter to this winter in terms of the QBO, because it is a east to west transitional winter. The next one is 1984-1985. So this one again with below average heights to our south and a strong blocking signal up to our north during the transitional winter, transitional easterly QBO to westerly QBO winter of 84-85. We bring in those cold east or northeasterly winds. The next winter that's very relevant in terms of the QBO transitioning from east to west is 94-95 with above average heights down to our south. Below average heights are up to the north. We bring that westerly flow through. That's a mild zonal Atlantic driven winter. 98-99 is the next one that's flipping from an east to a west QBO. And again, that's a mild winter with wind coming in from off the Atlantic, rather like that. And then we've got 2001-2002. So this one with above average heights to the south, below average heights up to the north. It's a strange winter because it has quite a coldish December, but January and February are very mild. So those are the years that do the sort of the east to west QBO flip through the winter. Putting them together, this is how the Decembers look. Generally a mild signal for the Decembers with above average heights both to the south and the east, below average heights to the west. We bring up those west to southwesterly winds. The Januaries look like that. Very unsettled, actually, in the Januaries, with a deep trough centred over the top of the country. There is a blocking signal, but it's more over towards Canada in the Januaries. The February is looking like this. Also quite a mild signals, really, for the Februaries, with above average heights to our south down here. Below average heights up to the north. Again, a little bit of a blocking signal towards Greenland. Not really strong enough to do a great deal for us. The Marches look like that. Very unsettled Marches favoured here as we're going into the westerly QBO from the easterly QBO through winter months. Jet stream going a little bit like that. And the overall reanalysis looks like this, with below average heights again to the north and the west, and then we've got above average heights down to the south, and then we bring those westerlies through the country rather like that. So not a particularly cold signal. The final thing we've got to talk about with the QBO, but it's relevant to this one, is when the QBO reaches its peak through the summer. Because this particular QBO reached its peak, of course, in July 2018. So there it is again, minus 29.1. That's the peak of this easterly QBO. So when the QBO peaks around the summer months is relevant to this particular scenario, because the QBO did peak around the summer and then waning away as we go into the autumn and then transitioning to the westerly QBO through winter. So for example, we've got 2012 here, the easterly QBO of 2011, just there, beginning in 2011, going through 2012 and ending at the start of 2013. The peak of that QBO occurred in the summer of 2012. There we are, minus 29.81, minus 27.82, minus 27.93, and then through the autumn easing away. So the final package of analogues to look at is those years where the easterly QBO peaked in the summer, but then kind of like wanes away as we go into the winter. We've got several of those years. We've got 1954, 1968, 1977, 1984, 1994, 1995, 1998, 2001, 2003, and the last time, 2012. So this is how all of those years look in terms of December, with quite a stronger blocking signal across Scandinavia, and some of those above average heights extending into the UK as well. Generally settled signal for December, and potentially a little bit colder as well. But January is looking interesting. Look at this, more interesting with these where the QBO has peaked in the summer compared to the transitional east to westerly QBO transitioning winter. This one is a cold winter signal with the below average heights down to the south and the blocking signal up around Greenland and Iceland. And then that continues into the Februaries as well, with the below average heights over and to the east of the country, above average heights close to Greenland, and we pull down those cold north or northeast winds when we combine all of those years in the Februaries. The Marches also look cold with a blocking signal around Greenland and Iceland, below average heights to our south, and favouring to bring in easterly winds. The winters overall are looking like this. It is a colder than average signal for the winters. The first time we've seen it with these QBO analogues this year. So again, we've got the blocking up around Greenland and Iceland. We've got the below average heights underneath it going down there. And we're bringing in those cold east or northeasterly winds. So you'd expect a cold and average winter in those winters where the QBO has peaked in the summer. And that's it. That is your they said final. That is your 12th and penultimate winter update done and dusted. We've talked for just over an hour. Hope you found it interesting and informative. A big thank you to James and to Richard for our input with this. Big thank you to James for getting the analogues together. And a big thank you to Richard for coming up with his suggestions for what we could look at with the QBO. And that wraps it all up. I'm going to talk you through Patreon and PayPal, but you know about that anyway. If you've been enjoying the updates, if you're enjoying winter updates or have enjoyed winter updates, please consider giving us a donation through Patreon or PayPal. The links to both of those pages are in the description at GazWebIz, and also on all the pages at GazWebIz. I think I'm pretty much exhausted now. Been a very busy few days. I'm going to go down and have a lie down in a darkened room. And I'll see you a little bit later on, because we've got the live chat with Quantum between 5 and 7. We've got the ECMWF and Metro France seasonal model update as well. I'm going to try and get a Christmas update in for you also. So keep checking back to the website for more. The live chats between 5 and 7. It will be interactive. We'll take as many of your questions as we can, talking about the cold weather that is upcoming, and also I'm sure the winter will feature in that live discussion as well. This video will be placed hopefully later today on the winter updates page, but if we can't get it on there today, it will definitely be tomorrow at 1 hour 4 minutes. Real epic. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.